Good morning, everyone. Boker Tov. This week's Torah portion is Nitzavim. Nitzavim means standing, but more than standing. It means standing firm. And the verse begins, "You are all standing firmly before Hashem your God." And Rashi asks, what does it mean when Moshe Rabbeinu says to the Jewish people, "You are all standing firmly before God"? Moshe Rabbeinu addresses the Jewish people hundreds of times throughout the Torah. Never does it say, "You are standing firmly before God today." And Rashi answers by saying that the end of last week's Torah portion was all the terrible predictions, admonitions, horrific events that were going to befall the Jewish people. All the tragedies of Jewish history were predicted and foretold in last week's Torah portion. And therefore, when the Jewish people heard these horrible events that were going to occur throughout history, they said, how are we going to survive? How are we going to remain a Jewish nation if we're going to experience such a bitter exile and so much suffering? And therefore Moshe Rabbeinu says, Atem nitzavim hayom kulchem. The miracle of Jewish existence is that despite everything you will endure as a Jewish nation, you will remain standing firmly. In other words, what Moshe Rabbeinu is saying to the Jewish people is that God has blessed you with a tremendous resilience, that you will be able to prevail and endure and overcome the worst circumstances of life. And that is truly one of the greatest miracles of Jewish history, that despite the fact that we are such a small and tiny nation, and we've faced so much oppression and persecution, over 30 centuries of persecution, starting from Pharaoh in Egypt, down to the Holocaust in our very own generation, yet here we are, standing strong, standing firm, standing erect, standing proud with the miracle of returning to the land of Israel in our generation. How do you explain this? How do you understand this? This is the power of the Jewish nation. And that's what Moshe Rabbeinu predicts. Atem nitzavim. Despite everything, you will be the most ancient nation and culture in the world that will outlive all of its enemies. This is the miracle of Jewish existence. Something that is inexplicable and can only be understood in the context of God giving us the special blessing of being an eternal nation. And this is true for every one of us as individuals. As we come to the high holidays and we reflect on the past year, if we've experienced challenges and struggles, instead of focusing on the negative, look at the fact that you're still standing. Look at the fact that you've prevailed, you've overcome. Despite the challenges, you are still standing firm, and be grateful for the ability to have prevailed and endured and overcome the challenges and be able to reach another new year, which God willing will be a year that you will have only blessings and completely transcend any challenges or negativity in your life. This past Friday, King Charles III wanted to meet with all the faith leaders, representatives of all the faiths in Great Britain as the new king. And he scheduled a meeting at Buckingham Palace for 6 p.m. Now Shabbat enters at 6:50 p.m. And the chief rabbi of Great Britain, Rabbi Ephraim Mervis, was invited to represent as the only Jew, the only rabbi, the Jewish faith, together with this interfaith meeting. And Rabbi Mervis didn't know exactly how he was going to do it, because Shabbat starts at 6:50 and he lives in North London, and he would have to maybe stay near Buckingham Palace and not make it home for Shabbat. But he was ready to go to represent the Jewish community. When he got a call on Friday afternoon from Buckingham Palace saying the king realized that he scheduled a meeting too close to Shabbat, and he knows you have to get home for Shabbat because as an observant Jew you don't drive on Shabbat, and he wants to leave enough time, so the king is moving the meeting back to 5 p.m. to accommodate Rabbi Mervis. And sure enough, Rabbi Mervis went to the meeting, and he told afterwards that when he went into the meeting, the king addressed all the interfaith leaders, and then he turned to Rabbi Mervis and said, "Rabbi Mervis, you can leave now because I know you have to get home in time for Shabbat." Rabbi Mervis said, "Your Majesty, I will follow protocol. I will not leave until the king has concluded the meeting." And the king said, "No, I know you have to get home for Shabbat. You can go now, I understand." And Rabbi Mervis said, "No, I will not leave before Your Majesty, the king, leaves." And he stayed till the end of the meeting still having enough home before Shabbat to greet Shabbat with his wife lighting the Shabbat candles and going to synagogue. And I find this remarkable, that here in Europe, where 2 out of 3 Jews were murdered during the Holocaust just 75 years ago, kings and queens and royalty pay respect to one Jew and the holiness and the sanctity of Shabbat. And when a Jew stands firm with faith in God, and the whole world acknowledges that Jew and Shabbat, this is the power, this is the resilience, this is the strength of the Jewish nation. And our strength derives from one place and one place only, and that is the Torah and our adherence to the Torah. Let us be blessed with a good year ahead, and let us remember to remain strong, to remain resilient.